Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. We believe this is episode 20, which it seems kind of crazy. We've been doing it for 20 episodes so far. But here we are once again. With us, we have another great guest. I'm Derek. I'm a certified personal trainer, a teacher of over 20 years, two-sport collegiate athlete.
I'm Tim. I'm a certified athletic trainer, nationally registered EMT, and a wellness coach.
And as always, we're not doctors, so before you begin any new nutrition plans or anything like that, please consult your doctor. And another thing, this will be on YouTube, so if you want to jump over to the Health Movement Podcast on YouTube, give us a subscribe and listen to and watch the episodes there. That's also an area to find this. But without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Sarah Bradley, who is an integrative nutrition coach. Super excited to have you with us, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I am really honored to be here and excited.
So when we had first started, I think I was bugging you a little while ago about hopping on the show with us, and we were talking about things that you wanted to discuss. One of the big things you said was your why, as why you're so passionate about clean eating for the family and everything else. And we talk a lot on the show about finding your why for whatever it is you're doing, whether it be fitness, health, or just overall success in life. I didn't know if you wanted to jump into that, your why for clean eating.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I agree with you. I think that that's one of the most important things to have in order for you to be successful, as you mentioned, with any aspect of our health and wellness journey. For me, it started because my grandmother, whom I was very, very close to, had Alzheimer's. And I was her primary caregiver in my home for about a year and a half. And then I was responsible for her care once she went into assisted living. And I had to walk through that with her, and also then her death a few years later. And I knew that a couple of things. One, my great grandfather had Alzheimer's disease, and then, of course, my grandmother. And, we often think that these things are just things that we're going to be genetically disposed to, and that means we're going to get it. And I decided to take a deep dive, not just assume that that was my fate, but to actually research and find out, are there things that I can do to lessen my chance? Because I have 3 adult sons, I have 3 grandchildren, I have one more on the way. I don't want my family to walk through what I walked through with my grandmother. I think that the person who has that disease, it is horrific for them, but I almost feel like it's worse on the family who has to watch that family member just become so debilitated. It's not a pleasant thing to go through. And I decided, as much as I love my family, this is something that I should really take seriously and I should investigate. And so I did. And I found out that, when it comes to things that we think we're just genetically going to get, if one of our parents have something, or, our grandparents, whatever it might be, that may be something that, so to speak, loads your gun. But what we do, the lifestyle that we live, is what actually fires it. And that gave me power. And that was huge. I needed that power so that I could make really solid changes to what I was doing. I had previously been a sugar addict, and I wish there was a stronger word to describe my addiction, because it was severe. And to find out that that's a big piece of oftentimes what's leading to the Alzheimer's is the sugar, and it's obviously the different things within our lifestyle that can really impact your chances for having that. It's considered type 3 diabetes today. And, the numbers are becoming staggering in regard to how many people are having to suffer with this. And again, it's not just the person who's suffering, it's the whole family. And so when I figured that out, I had to just kind of take a step back and go, all right, yes, I love my sugar, I love my sweets, and I love my fast food and all of the things, but do I love my family more? And simply put, of course,
Yeah.
yes, 1,000%. And that was my why. And the interesting thing is, and you guys probably know this because you're walking through, this healthy lifestyle. The crazy thing is, once you clean up your diet, once you start eating whole foods, once you start exercising, you realize how incredible this is. I no longer think, well, I'm giving this up because, I want to be healthy for my kids and my grandchildren. And it's just such a burden to kind of give that up. But, it's fine. No, I feel like I am living my best life. I don't want that donut. I don't want that McDonald's cheeseburger. It's no longer satisfying to me and it's not good. Where I eat good whole foods and I love it. They taste phenomenal. So I think, sometimes it's you find your why, you start to build, these almost like lifestyle building blocks. I think you take one step at a time as you're changing your lifestyle and you're trying to create that wellness plan for yourself. And as you start building more and more, you realize what huge benefits you have to every aspect of your life.
I love that. I love that. And especially the part there about people think so often about, oh, I have to give this up or I can't do that anymore. But when you look at it as to what you're getting and how much it outweighs it, yeah, maybe you don't have a bag of Swedish fish, which are phenomenal, by the way. Instead, you think more clearly, you can get up better, you have more energy. Like the little things that you get far outweigh, the 5 seconds that you spend eating that food or however long it is. It's that instant gratification versus delayed gratification. So, and it isn't that delayed too. If you eat clean for 2 days, you definitely feel a difference as opposed to eating like crap for 2 days, which you also feel a difference. So it's whichever way you want to do it.
No, for sure. And you also, for me, I think getting up off of the ground, because all of this also plays hand in hand, obviously, with my fitness, right? With
Yeah.
being active, being able to do my strength training and all of those things. So, yeah, you have this Swedish fish or any number of different things that you could be feeding your body. But again, that small little 5-minute thing and what we're ultimately how badly we're feeling also translates into I can't play with my grandchildren. I don't have energy to go outside and play with them and to really be engaged with them. Or even like you said, you get brain fog and you're just not as clear. And I spend 1 to 2 days a week with my grandchildren every week, and I'm responsible for them and their care. And I want to make sure that I'm attentive and also having fun with them. And I think one of the big things that kind of shift for me in this journey is also being able to start focusing on experiences, how important that is instead of eating food at certain gatherings, right? If
Yeah.
that makes sense. Everything that we do so much in our culture is focused around food, and oftentimes that food is not good food. And so kind of changing again part of that mindset of going, you know what, I want to be a part of the gathering that we're going to because I want to see the people. I want to be a part of that experience. And it doesn't have to be around food. Food is just temporal, right? But
Yeah.
being able to really have those memories and experiences, the experiencing with the experiences with the grandchildren, like that's what's really meaningful. I feel like in life itself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I really like how you mentioned the foundational aspect to it and the building blocks and how it doesn't it's not an overnight change, right? Especially when we've talked about this before, but it's something where it's built into our society, especially as Americans, where uh the marketing to all the processed sugary type of foods is so much different than what we hear for more of a healthy lifestyle or the more mainstream type of American diet, right? And it is starting to change a little bit, I think, with the the rising, access to information and all that kind of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it affects how you feel day to day. Like you're talking about exercising too. It affects how you recover and how you feel. And if you're eating in an inflammatory diet, a mouthful, um, it's something that contributes to how you're going to feel, and you're not going to be able to exercise or play with your grandkids, or I've got a 7-year-old, playing with my 7-year-old, or trying to do all the things that I want to do. And I think about, getting to that point where in 20 years he's going to have kids, and I want to be able to be active and play sports with them then. And I need to live a lifestyle now that's going to promote that. And personally, what led me to this, to kind of go down the road that I've gone down, is watching my family members eat a very poor diet, and not, not prioritize these type of things through their lifestyle. And I think uh, some of that is lack of knowledge. I think, we've learned a lot over the last 50 to 60 years, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think they've also prioritized it either. And I think that is a lot of it is finding your why, or even, being motivated and staying disciplined to the things that you're convicted to. You know what I mean? I think your convictions are what make that, what help you stick to that lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that you kind of hit the head, or hit the nail on the head, I should say. You know, when you talk about the kind of watching your family members and kind of seeing what they've been doing, that's another aspect, at least for me personally, that's been very important. So I told you what my why was and what sort of started all of this for me. But it's almost like you're taking that and you're going, okay, I saw that was, that was what they were doing, and you're wanting to make a change. I'm hoping to be on the other side of that, where I have my children and my grandchildren looking at this lifestyle that I have, how energetic, how healthy I am. I just turned 50 last month. I want to be able to be an example of what to do, versus them having to look at me and aging in a way that, I'm very sick and maybe I need help. I need to go into assisted living. My goal is to not have to do that. That doesn't have to be the natural progression. And I think a lot of times we as Americans think that that's just the natural way that this aging is going to go. We are, that's just what it is. You get to your 70s, your 80s, and you're going to need to have help, because you're not going to be able to get up and down or be able to do things on your own. And that's not true. We have
No,
to,
absolutely not.
right? We have to build our muscle, and we have to feed our bodies properly. And we need to keep that inflammation down so we can keep those chronic diseases at bay. So I'm hoping to be that example to them. Because, something else that I think oftentimes we don't talk about when we think something is genetic, a lot of times we don't talk about the fact that, is it that is actually in your genes, or is it that the lifestyle that your mother or grandfather was living is what's been passed on? So those poor eating habits, the lack of exercise, the lack of strength training, which I feel like, yes, I feel like things are changing, and maybe we're starting to get more information and we're starting to wise up about it. But I also think, we are in the same space. So, the things that we're seeing is going to be very loud, right? In this
Yeah.
space, I feel like there's a lot of us that are talking about these important building blocks, as we were talking about earlier. But then when you sort of take a step back, you kind of realize there's so many people that really don't know. They really don't. They trust that when you go to the grocery store, for example, and you pull a product off the shelf, we have an FDA that's telling you that product should be safe for consumption. Now, I don't think any of us are going to say, yes, we think that if we eat the Twinkie, that's going to, cause us to have great health. But I don't think that we realize that those ingredients in these foods are not only not causing us great health, they're causing great harm to us, because they're full of dyes and chemicals and things like that. So I think so many people just are really unaware of what's happening to our food system, and what they're actually buying at the grocery store. And so I often just think we need to be loud, and also really realize that they don't know. So many people just don't know. So I think, us being that example again to your children, your grandchildren, that's a beginning of us spreading, almost like a movement. I feel like it's a movement that we need to really spread.
Yeah, well, at my school, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but they give out free breakfasts and that sort of thing for the kids, which I think is great. My room, you go up the stairs and there's second through fifth grade on the second floor. My room's the first one, and everybody walks by. And I'm watching these kids walk by with the breakfast that they've gotten, and it's like Cocoa Puffs, Tricks, these cinnamon bars that look fantastic, but it's all processed pack. And I understand they don't have time to whip up eggs for the kids as they're walking in the door, or like something fresh. So I understand the difficulty in it, but it's every day, and it's like, I know what's going to happen 20, 30 minutes after they eat that, and they're going to crash hard, and then they're going to get hungry again. And then, you're going to go on that glucose roller coaster the rest of the day, which is tough. So it's a more systematic change, or a universal change that needs to happen. And it's tough to figure out the best way to do that. But I think probably the first step, like you said, a lot of people don't know. So the education piece is huge.
And it's not even just the Twinkie anymore either, though. It's the carcinogens that are in the pesticides, and it's there's so much more. It's so many different layers to the issue that are it's so complicated to try to change at a global or a socially acceptable level, that it's really just trying to spread information between people that and you're like, and exactly what you were saying is it starts in your house. It starts with your family, and trying to make that change. Sometimes for people it's hard to just make the change for themselves, never mind trying to implement that into their family's lifestyle. So I think that's really the challenging bit of it, is trying to get yourself to figure it out, and and like you said, lay that foundation, and then start to build from there.
Yeah, and I will say that so I've been living this lifestyle a little over 2 years. And it started with just myself, of course, and it has slowly been definitely dripping down. It first went to my husband,
I was going to
but
say, he's got to be the first one that gets it. He didn't have a
absolutely.
choice.
Well, and this is the thing about it, right? The majority of households, the mom, the woman, the wife, she is the one who is buying the food, making the food. That's not in every household, but that's
Yep.
a lot of our households. So I made very strategic moves, if you will, of taking things out that my husband was eating. He is a very tall, thin man. Um, and that's sometimes very dangerous because he could eat whatever he wanted and he never saw any ramifications on the outside. Yeah, I think that's a term they often will say he's probably skinny fat, right? He
Yeah.
probably has a lot of stuff going on internally. You can't see that. And I think that is, again, I think it's sometimes more dangerous, but heavy snacker, heavy, ice cream and chips every night. So I stopped buying the ice cream, first of all. And
How'd
then I
that go over
started,
when you stopped buying the ice cream?
I brought things in to substitute it.
You played it smart
Do you
then.
know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this is the thing. You can have good food and you can have sweet food. I mean, I know obviously we're always looking at our insulin spikes and there's different things, but I do think using raw honey. I like to cook with local raw honey, maple syrup, things that are natural. I like to take recipes that I see and sort of clean them up. And so I've done things like that. I made him an apple crisp this past week. He loved it. I mean, it's got gluten-free organic oatmeal in it. It had, some good seasoning, organic apples. It had almond flour. And then I made my own homemade whipped topping and it just had some monk fruit and you're just using a heavy cream. A lot of the things if you just take a little extra time to do it yourself at home where you're using your own ingredients, you're getting a really good, delicious meal or dessert. And that's what I did. I just started substituting different things like that. I took out the chips that he was eating that was full of vegetable oil, seed oils in general. I wanted to
Yeah.
get those out of his diet. And so the interesting thing was I didn't do it all at one time. You can't do that because then,
Yeah,
that's
no,
just
you
not going to work.
absolutely can't. You can't.
But you slowly do it. Again, it's the building blocks, right? I just incorporated that into my pantry, but I slowly did that. And what happened was he started to notice that he was feeling good. That was a byproduct of obviously what we were doing. And the aha moment came for him. We'd been probably doing this maybe 3, 4 months, something like that. He went out and he had a burger and fries and a soda. I was not with him, you can imagine. But, he did that and he came home and the next day he was like, oh my goodness, my knees hurt so
Mm.
bad. And that was what he needed. He needed to be able to feel the difference, right? You got to feel the difference of how good you're feeling, but then get a taste of what you were feeling before because you can kind of quickly forget, right?
I mean, sometimes it's
Um,
a slow buildup, and when you're always living that way, you just assume that's the way it is.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
or, I find it kind of interesting. I think the opposite often happens with us, where as you're aging, you think it's normal that your knee's starting to
Yeah.
hurt, that you're having these aches and pains, and not realizing, well, you're eating all of this processed food that's probably causing inflammation that likely is what's causing these aches and pains. I mean, you don't have to feel that way. So that was his aha moment. And then it's been so interesting. My older grandkids, I have a granddaughter who's 6 and I have a grandson who's 4. Now, let me preface this by saying, look, do I take them out for ice cream from time to time? Absolutely. Absolutely. I do believe in balance. And I don't think anybody should just necessarily say, I'm never doing whatever it might be. I think balance is really important. But that being said, we don't do that all of the time. And they know that when they're with me, we have really good food. My grandson the other day asked me for almonds when we were out. Like he knows I have what I call my Mimi bag. And it's a lunch bag that I take everywhere with me because I always like when I'm out and about to always have good snacks on hand, whether it's for me or for the grandkids or my husband. And so they know that Mimi's going to have food for them, but they also know that it's healthy. And they will often ask me, is this healthy? Is that healthy? Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to instill in them that they're having good food. It's food that they enjoy, but you try and do it in a way that's not going to cause them to think of other foods as bad, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. But again, to just create sort of a healthy relationship with food. And it kind of expands their palates, to be honest with you. So, for example, they like pumpkin seeds. They would never in a million years probably have tried pumpkin seeds had this not been, again, a slow build with them where we were, I get good fruit chews that are just made with like organic mangoes. And, I have beef sticks that they like. I just have these different things that they just really enjoy. And they're now willing to try more and more things because they're like, oh, well, that was good. And they like that it's healthy at this point.
Yeah. And that kind of pulls on that thread that we spoke about a few episodes ago, Derek, with the good and the bad food, where it's
Yeah.
I like that healthy connotation to it versus it's good food, right? And it promotes health, living healthy and feeling healthy. I think that's the other piece. And when you're speaking to your husband's, how he felt following, the burger and soda the day before, I think a lot of people, like, physically, when they think of the McDonald's or they think of those foods, they think of it more as like a digestive, it's going to hurt their stomach, or they're going to, not necessarily like it's going to hurt my knee or it's going to inflame other joints. And I think that's the other thing, is a lot of people don't link those two together, the physical health with maybe their digestive health and how intertwined those things are. But I also think there's a disconnect that people don't understand of. I mean, it's the old adage, you are what you eat, right? And it's very much, those things are very much connected. And I think there is a big disconnect. And a lot of it's the education, like you were saying, like a lot of people just don't know. And this is, I worked in a setting previously that was, you see a lot where people don't, specifically the physical pain, they don't associate those things together. And the other one is water. And that's another thing that we've hammered home
Yes.
on this podcast as well. But it's those two things are so massive to what you feel on a daily basis that it, if you just take those two parts of the equation and start to slowly chip away at them, aside from your, whatever you're doing physically active and all those things, you're going to feel a major difference in how, what your day to day, what you feel day to day. It's incredible. It's insane.
And then you throw sleep in there, and if you're getting, 7 to 8 hours, then that's huge right there. You're 80% of the way there if you can dial in the good food. That actually it's probably even more than that. If you're moving, that's the last piece. But it's it's incredible, and it's tough though. People get set in their ways, and I mean, how quickly did the last 3 weeks go? If you think about it, you blink and they're gone. So it's tough once you're in the rhythm of life and everything else to stop and try to learn this stuff. It's difficult, but usually it takes something happening that's pretty big that's going to wake you up, or somebody close to you, and then they kind of help you out along the way. Um, but it takes a lot to get going there, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. I had
Yeah, and,
started.
and I think,
Oh,
and I was
sorry,
going to
go
say
ahead.
really quick to piggyback off of that, I think that's why, when we talk about that why, one big piece with that, and probably especially for women, is for it to be deeper than I want to fit into a certain
Yes,
size, right? Because
100%.
I think that's when we get into that, when we're looking at it from that aspect, that's where we are yo-yoing. We're doing it and then we're stopping it.
Well, that's because
I
you get
always,
to that size and you're like,
yeah.
oh, I'm done, and then it comes back.
Yeah, and it's so superficial,
Yeah.
for me at this point, there are days, I'm sure this doesn't happen to you guys, but there are days where I do not want to go and work out,
Oh,
right? Can you relate?
yo, 100%.
So, and of course I'm joking because I know we all have those days, but what gets me, and I always say in my basement, because that's where my workout equipment is. What gets me down there is not how I'm going to look tomorrow. What gets me down there is I need to build muscle. I'm especially, guys, because I am in my 50s now. I know that I'm losing it. I have to work to keep it, and then obviously to build it. But that's what's getting me down there, is thinking I don't want somebody having to help take me to the bathroom in 15
Yeah.
years. So it's got to be something that's much, much deeper when you're seeking out that why for yourself.
And when you talk about that, I even noticed in Tim, I owe you a huge thank you for this too. My focus when going to the gym has shifted. You want to get stronger, and this is probably more guys than women a lot of the time, but you want that bench press number to go up and all that, and none of that matters. Now I go every time, and I used to have bad Achilles tendonitis, and Tim helped me out with it, gave me some exercises. That's my first 15 minutes when I get to the gym, is rolling out my feet, my calves, my Achilles, like getting my legs. I've been doing it. I might have missed 2 days in the last 4 months that I've been doing it. I can go play basketball now and it doesn't hurt. Like I can do, I actually rolled my ankle because I was moving much more quickly than my body was used to moving, and nothing else had built, like the ankles weren't ready for it. And I felt great. So then I learned, I gotta ease up and build everything else up. But now my why is shifted from I have to lift the most weight to, all right, I know I need to get everything. I got to get my whole body there. I got to stretch out. I've got to work on mobility. I've got to work on flexibility. I know I want to keep my endurance up. So it's very goal oriented, as opposed to I need to go to the gym to work out, and that's where that ends.
and it comes back to what Sarah said about balance, and it's balance in everything that you're doing, and it's not being one sided or or too heavy in one direction or the other. It's really just trying to find that symmetry, and I think that's in your diet, and that's kind of in everything that you're doing, and too much of a good thing could be bad as well too. So that's where it really is looking for the balance of all those things that you need. And the mobility is a thing that, again, that's like a lot of the things that we're talking about is people don't focus on that as much. They want to focus on the exercising or the lifting, the running, the cardio, all those things. But the mobility, the recovery aspect of that is just as, if not more important sometimes, especially depending on if you're overtraining or where you are in training cycle and all those things. And it's just another piece of the puzzle that I think it needs to be focused on just as much. And but again, to loop all the healthy eating all back in, it all affects each other too. So it's really understanding that, with some, you clean up your diet a little bit, you drink a little bit more water, and you start to focus on some of the other smaller pieces in the foundational building blocks, and it's going to make a big difference. It's water dripping over a rock, right? It's gonna change it over time, and that's really the most important part.
One thing I started up, and I wanted to tell you guys, when I say I just started like Monday is when I started this, because I'd be good, and then you kind of start sliding, and like I didn't have a way that I like to keep myself accountable. So like I started tracking my food again and everything, but I made a Google form that has like 6 or 7 things on it. Then the first one's like, did you track your food? Did you hit your protein? Did you move 10,000 steps? I think it's, did you workout intensity? And there might be another thing on there, but I'll open up the Google form. It's rated 1 through 5, and I just hit the buttons, and then I go to bed. And now I'm going to have, I'm going to be able to look at, over the next month, how am I doing? What things am I not hitting? And it also keeps me a little bit accountable too, because, I'm like, crap, I've got 9,500 steps. I said I have to get 10,000. So I'm just going to walk in circle for 500 steps to get it. But it's it's keeping it in the forefront of my mind that, all right, this is important. These are the things that I've decided right now. And it's going to change over time because, everything evolves and you find out what else you need to focus on. But, Tim, I think we have to make that into an app too, because it would be a lot easier than the Google form. So I looked it up, and there's no coding app building. So we'll throw that out there too for people.
No, I do think one thing that I think is kind of important maybe to mention at this point, because you listed off all those things that you're doing. I think it's really important for people to realize, again, we're talking about building blocks.
Yes.
You didn't, I would assume you didn't come out of the gate and this is what you're doing. You're
No,
knocking all
no.
of these things out of the park. You're doing the 10,000 steps. I think so often people get so overwhelmed when they're hearing, oh, okay, I have to not only cook at home and eat this way, and I have to do the steps, and I have to weight train, and I have to all the things. I have to get the water. I mean, let's not even talk about circadian rhythm.
Yes.
I have to get out to the sun, and I have to, and I have to sleep 7 to 8 hours. There's always a litany of things that we are talking about, and yes, all of these things really do work together. And so often when it comes to oftentimes when I am working with clients, we are targeting fat loss. That's what they are wanting to do. And so often you might, especially as a woman, not be able to lose the fat that you're wanting to lose if these other things are not dialed in: stress, sleep, all of those things. But I think it's always important sometimes for us just to remind people, just start somewhere, start somewhere, maybe cut sugar out, maybe, start there, and then maybe instead of parking in that spot as close to the store as you can get, maybe tomorrow you're going to go to the other end of that. Just start in these areas and then just build from there, because it takes time. And I don't know about you guys, I still I'm constantly a work in progress of,
Oh,
I mean, I
100%.
feel like you get some of these things down, and now I'm like, now they're telling us that we should be jumping. You know, the little trampolines.
Mhm.
Oh, the
There's
mini,
a
yeah.
name, right? And they're like, oh, well, you should be doing that. And part of me, sometimes my brain goes, I cannot add another thing to what I am supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's figuring out what is going to work with your lifestyle and then building those blocks until you start making some of those goals.
And you don't have to do it all every day. And I think that's the other piece to it, right? Is everybody's like, I got to fit all of this into my 24-hour period. And it's not even 24 hours, because if you get a proper night's sleep, it's really only 16 hours, right? And then and I think it's really just trying to, and that's where talking about the Google Doc that you're talking about, Derek. Well, maybe one day you only hit 4 out of the 5, or you only hit 3 out of the 5, and then you start to see that pattern over the course of a month. And again, I'm not gonna use this as we're not getting sponsored by any means, but I just started using the Whoop about 6 to 8 weeks ago, and I finally got my my monthly report back in the last couple of days for the month of November. And I'm going through and I'm looking at kind of, and it's not, and that goes way deeper than, because you can, in that app, just to kind of give a little bit of an insight, you can journal those things you can kind of customize the journal entries that you want to put in, similar to what we're talking about the Google Doc. But then you can also look at your heart rate, and you can look at your sleep, and you can look at your respiratory rate, and and you can see the difference over the past 30 days. And this is something for me, I'm kind of getting back into my fitness journey. I was away from it for 4 to 5 months, and then and I use this as something to kind of kickstart me and you be a little bit more disciplined, be a little bit more
Yeah,
self accountable.
you've been dialed in lately too.
Well, and that's a little bit for other reasons, career wise, but at the same time, it it's motivating, and it also is, one feeds the other. And I think that's the big piece. It is, I have been more motivated for a reason, but at the same time, it the Whoop also helps to kind of keep me accountable, and then gives me data that I can look at, and that kind of makes me a little bit more motivated, and it all kind of leads into each other. And then it's like, all right, what I'm eating, and my problem's always been, it's not necessarily that I eat, I don't eat clean. It's like a portion control kind of thing, where I can overeat a little bit and I can eat too much, or that's the kind of stuff for me where I know I need to try to dial in. All right, well, now the next step would be maybe weighing out my portions, or trying to actually keep a food journal, which I haven't done in a long time. And these are all things that over time, it's just picking away at. All right, I get a little bit better every week at dialing it in, and that's not just nutrition, that's my routine, and my ritual, as Jeff said a few episodes
Yeah.
ago. So that's where it's really just trying to hone that in, and really find what makes me feel the best, and both physically and mentally. And recently, it's really I find when I don't physically exert myself in a day, I don't feel right. It's not that I feel bad, it's just I don't feel right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing for me personally, that I've really started to kind of, and when I was at my fittest, and it's probably somewhere around college or grad school, where I was the most active and doing the most, but I also had the most free time. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a full-time work responsibility, where it wasn't built into what I was doing in the day to day. Where now it's like I can't work out in the middle of the day like I used to be, or it wasn't something that I could do with my job. And now it's just trying to carve out that time, and then also be a husband and a father and a friend. And I think that's the hardest part for people, is like, you don't really realize that it's not it's something they don't all have to exist at the same exact time, and you don't have to get it all into one day. I think that's the biggest thing for people. And if you see it online all the time, you see people posting memes about like, it's exactly what you just said. Like it's you don't feel like you have to do it all at once, or another thing that I need to be doing. You know what I mean? And it's like
Yeah.
I think that's where people get hung up is it's not all, it all doesn't happen to have to happen in a day or even a week, you know, and it's just being consistent over the course of the time.
Like you said, Sarah, it's not like this is a lifestyle. So you don't have to fix it this week, Tim. Yeah, you're right. You don't have to fix it this year, but you just have to start heading in the right direction. So pick one or two things, work on that for a month, then add a small another thing, and just realize that the end goal is, like you said, Sarah, you don't want to be in a home and have people have to take care of you. My mother told me years ago, she's like, if I get to that point, just wheel the wheelchair into the ocean. Like, I don't want it. So, um, that's the plan. And, we see plenty of people as they're older and it shows. And then there are others who are still active as can be playing. So there's a guy who's 75 years old playing basketball with us every week. And he's not as fast as the 20-year-olds, but he can still hit a shot and he's getting up and down the court with people 50 years younger than him. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to make sure I'm doing. Have my kids and my grandkids out there kicking my butt. That would be ideal for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you look around today. I don't know how it is where you are. I'm in Virginia, but I look around and the majority of people that I see older have canes, walkers, are in
Yeah.
wheelchairs. When you go to the airport today, I was just traveling about a year ago and I was really amazed at how many wheelchairs I was seeing. I wasn't seeing that when I was traveling as a teenager. You see one or two, maybe. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's it's again, I think it's become almost like that's just what's gonna happen. Um, but it certainly doesn't have to be that way, but it is a little bit it should stop us in our tracks, right? I think when we look around and we see that, that should be something that's alarming and we say that is not okay and there's a better way. I did want to mention real quickly though, when we're talking about these building blocks and different things, we've got the first of the year right around the corner. And so many people will make their New Year's resolutions. And one of the things that I started telling my clients last year was, I want you to not look at, I'm making a New Year's resolution for today. I want you to look at, where do you want to be December of 2025? Figure
That's
that
good to
out.
look at.
What is that? Because when we look at something and we're looking at this, what I think I want to do in 8 weeks or maybe 10 weeks, oftentimes it's not realistic. It really isn't. When people are trying to lose fat, as an example, and which is what a lot of people are wanting to
Yep.
do when January 1st comes, it's healthy to lose 1 pound a week. People don't want to hear that because they want a fast solution. So I think same thing. You think, if I'm going to start working out and I'm going to be strength training, well, I want to make sure in 8 weeks that I can see some muscle popping out.
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily realistic. Look at the long term. Let's look at, first of all, think how quickly 2024 went by. That's what I always try to talk to my
Yeah.
clients about, right? As we're at this age, we all know we blinked and 2024 passed. So when you hit January 2025, you have to know that December is right around the corner, even though it's a year. So figure out what you want to do. Where do you want to be? And then each month, add something to your goal that's going to get you closer to that resolution that you have for the end of the year. And that's how you can kind of just slowly build and have something that's realistic and something that's truly attainable.
Yeah. But in even 1 pound a week after a year, that's over 50 pounds you've lost. Like you tell somebody you
Absolutely.
can lose 50 pounds in a year, or this time next year, you're going to be 50 pounds lighter. They would take that every time if that was, a goal of theirs.
Well, in the biggest thing is 50 pounds of fat. And I think the
Yeah.
problem with that is people chase the scale, and it's like you could lose 5 pounds in a workout just in water weight, and it's where it's what we've talked about before, is like not just chasing the scale, chase the measurements, chase the mirror. That's what you
Absolutely.
should be chasing, and chase how you feel. that is the key to all of it, especially with a lot of the times with the fat loss. Like, yes, some of it is an aesthetic, but most of it's going to be how you feel. And that's where I think if you throw a 25-pound weight vest on somebody and say, walk around, they're going to walk up and down these stairs with that 25-pound weight vest on and tell me how much harder it feels than it does when you don't have it on. And I think that might hammer it home for people, where it really is, it makes a significant difference with how you're breathing on the wear and tear on your joints. And as somebody that's a bigger guy, like I've been a bigger guy most of my life, it makes a big difference, and it makes a difference in how you feel. And it really does. I think that's with some of that stuff. And not to go down a little bit of a wormhole on the weight loss, but that's a big thing, is that's kind of a loaded term too. Like it's yes, it's mostly fat, but at the same time, like if you're exercising, you want to keep the lean mass, and you want to lose the fatty mass. You want to keep that, and that's where you're seeing things like the fad dieting stuff, or the semaglutide type of stuff, where you're losing a lot of the lean mass, not necessarily the fat mass. And that's where it's like it can also be detrimental in what you're looking for, or not exactly what you're looking for either. So I think being educated on those things is also important too. And I'm not saying that those things are necessarily, they don't have their place, but I think it's also not a fix all, or everybody wants the magic pill, but I don't think that's also that necessarily the answer for everybody either.
Yeah, it's not a long-term solution if your habits and your lifestyle are what getting you to that point. The second you stop those, that's you're going to be in trouble. And like you said, losing the number can't be the ideal. You can't lose if you're losing more than a pound or two a week. It's not all body fat. You're losing muscle. You're losing other things. So if you're really ramping it up and you're psyched you lost 30 pounds in a month, like your body fat percentage probably didn't go down at all. It might have even gone up if you lost a ton of muscle mass. So you got to be patient. You got to do it the right way, so that just the fats, you might lose a little bit of muscle too, but like you said, Sarah, you hit the basement, you lift the weights, you eat your protein to make sure that you're keeping on as much as you can. And I think it's tough too. I saw something today too, that everybody sees the social media pictures, people with the six packs, and everybody wants that. And I don't know if this is true, but what they're saying is there are more millionaires in the world than people with six packs. So it's easier to become a millionaire than to be at that 8% body fat for a guy, or 15 for a girl. And then that's not super sustainable either. Maybe 8%, but if you're down to 5 or 6, there's no way you can sustain that long term. So it's just understanding what health actually is. It's not getting on the stage unless you're competing. Nobody cares what you look like. We're all wearing clothes and stuff. Like, it's how you feel, it's how you act. So that in the end is just do it the right way, take your time, and you're changing your lifestyle.
I love that you pointed that out, because I don't think enough people do point that out. And that's and I have never actually heard it in that way, about the millionaire analogy. But I think I can only speak for a woman, because obviously I'm a woman. But it's so hard for us to sometimes get out of our own way of striving for perfection. And that's a big thing. And I think it goes, Tim, to what you're saying when we're talking about our goals, and it's not all about the number on the scale. I'm a complete believer in you need to toss the scale. It's not about that at all. It's because you're right, we're going to be losing inches of different things. But just all of that to say, we as women tend to have this idea of perfection, and of course we are inundated on social media on, like, as you mentioned, on what health looks like, and that you do have to have sculpted arms and everything has to be perfect. And it's like anything, if you think that is what that is equating to, and you're not meeting it, then it kind of, sometimes you might feel like, well, I'm just going to throw my hands up. And I'm not going to do this without again going, you know what? I am building muscle. I may not look like somebody who's going to be on the Sports Illustrated cover, but I'm building muscle. I am picking my grandkids up and I am hauling them all over, and they don't feel near as heavy now as what they did when they were 2. And obviously they have gained weight and have gotten stronger, right?
Yeah.
That's where you have to kind of go there's a way for us to really know the strength that we're building and that muscle that we're building. When I can get up and down easily off of a floor, again, yeah, I might not have fully sculpted legs like maybe I would have hoped that and wanted, but they're getting muscle in there and they're working. So I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah, I was looking it up while you're talking. 8.8% of Americans are millionaires, and about 2% have six packs.
So
Which
there
that
you
seems
go.
like an incredibly high number of millionaires out there. I don't know where they all are, but yeah, that so I don't know how accurate. That's what Forbes was saying, I guess.
I had a supervisor who used to, and this was mostly in the sports rehab world, but he used to say all the time, progress, not perfection. And I think that's just that's a great, it's a great type of mentality, especially in the day-to-day 1% better every day kind of, and that goes toward everything. And if you take that mentality to a day-to-day lifestyle, you're going to see change over time, and you're going to see a positive impact. And yeah, we are chasing perfection, but at the same time, it's the Vince Lombardi. If we chase perfection, we could catch excellence, right? So that's where you want to try to strive for that, but it's not necessarily the end goal. I think that's, just try to be a little better every day.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I can't believe we've already been talking for over 50 minutes. That went by very quickly. So thank you so much for coming. How can people get in touch with you? What's the
So
best way?
yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It's just Sarah with an H. So SARAH.K.Bradley, BRADLEY. And then I do have a website, and it's Sarah B, just the letter B, .wellness.net.
I will put all of those in the show notes so people can easily get in touch with you. But thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. I know it's a crazy time of year, so the schedules get a little busy right now. So thank you for everyone listening. Any other parting words from either of you?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed our time and our conversation.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, hop over to YouTube if you want to see the video of the whole thing. You can hop over to the website, healthmovement.us, to see all of our old episodes, and have a healthy and wonderful holiday season, everybody.